We're going to look briefly at the idea of social attribution. If you remember, we were talking about uh, the idea of the attribution error in one of the previous videos that we were looking at. We want to look at kind of more in depth at to what we and what society attribute particular actions or behaviors to when it comes to individuals. Attribution theory is how people assign causes to the events around them and then the effects that those assessments have. So not only what category we put a behavior in, but then because we put it in that category, usually there is a reaction or an action that we take because we put it into that category. So if I am looking at someone and saying, someone is driving and cuts me off in traffic, am I more likely to say that person's a jerk and probably does that all the time? Or am I the type of person that says, well, maybe there's some reason that person has to be in a hurry and that they're doing what it is that they're doing. And so the big concept here is what's called causal attribution. And that's where we link a behavior or a circumstance to what maybe caused it. So we're looking for the explanation. So your best friend in the morning bites your head off when you get to school. And you're wondering, well, what is it? Is it something that I did? Maybe an argument we had? Is it something I didn't do? Is it something that somebody else did that's outside of where I might be controlling? I'm just the kind of the easy target of that behavior. And so we do this in a couple of different ways. There's what's called the explanatory style that we use. So we can either say, well, that's internal, right? That's something that's built into that person, right? John is just moody, or he's just forgetful. Or we can put it onto external factors, right? Well, he's just acting that way because the test didn't go well. Or he's just acting that way because somebody in his family's sick. And so we try to explain away or come up with an explanation for the behavior that other people have. The explanatory style can also suggest that such a behavior is stable, that it's just who the person is. And so we're either going to have to learn to accept it or cut off interaction with that person. Or it could be unstable, which means that this is something that can be changed. Now, you got to be real careful when you start looking around and saying, that you can change people and change the behaviors, right? When we were doing conditioning and things, we know there are certain things that you can do that will change those. But sometimes we can get caught up in the trap of thinking a trait is unstable when maybe it's a little more stable and isn't going to be able to be changed. The other kind of explanatory style that we get into is what's called global versus specific. Is this something that would happen in all situations, or is this the way the person is everywhere all the time? Or is this just an isolated incident? Is this just something that happened once that's kind of a one-off, or is this actually who this person is? A lot of times we can see that with things like celebrities or politicians. Things like that, you look at those actions and things that they've taken, maybe one interaction you see and say, well, is this just, one little thing and this person isn't actually this way, or is this an indicator of a much larger pattern of behavior or something that is kind of a fundamental part of who that person is? But all of this is just the idea that we try to figure out a cause for behavior. Now, for a lot of us, we will also try and come up with these causes for our own behavior and try and look and almost make excuses for the way we act if we act the way that we think is out of character or that doesn't make us look very good. So what can influence this? Well, your own disposition can influence. You've probably heard the idea of being a glass half full kind of person, or kind of a positive person, or a glass half empty, or kind of negative person. you're going to come with one, a particular slant based on who you are. So, are you somebody that sees the best in people and really strives to look for that, or are you somebody that has a little bit of a problem, kind of seeing the best in people, and you maybe leap to some negative assumptions? Another big one can be what kind of control you think you have over the situation. Is it something that you could possibly do something about? The idea of control in this gives the person hope. So if you look and say, well, yeah, this is just a circumstance, I can fix that circumstance and then this person's behavior is going to be better, then you're assuming you have some kind of control over the situation. When you don't have control of the situation, then it can be a little harder to be positive and to figure out what's going on there. We see this a lot, and there are some studies that suggest that even different genders are looked at this way. When we see problems with boys, we kind of default to this idea that it's a lack of effort, that it's something that they haven't put in. Think about schoolwork and things like that. You just got to work a little harder. Whereas with girls, what studies have found is people usually, or they will self-ascribe a lack of ability. So if you've got a boy and he fails a math test, maybe he looks and says, well, I just didn't work very hard on that. A girl, on the other hand, is more likely to say, I don't have the ability in math. I'm not very good at that. Now, obviously, one is a little more productive than the other. I think we'd want everybody, within reason, to be able to say, well, yeah, if I just put some more effort into this, I could get it. But we need to be aware of what the default is that people end up going to. We talked about counterfactual thinking already, but counterfactual thinking is this idea that we can replay situations in our head. So if something happens, then we have this ability to kind of hit replay in our head. We watch it again, and then we can do that so much that we find or even mentally create reasons why something didn't work out. If only I'd done this, or if only she'd done that, or he'd done this. Told you about a study that I read about medal winners in the Olympics. And it turns out that people that win gold or bronze medals are much happier than contestants that win silver medals. Because the gold medal winner obviously has won the entire thing. The bronze medal winner considers themselves lucky because there are a lot of people who didn't get medals. So at least they got a medal. The silver medal person, what they found is concentrates a little bit more on the idea that they were just that close to gold. They don't feel as lucky as the bronze medal winner when it goes in. So it could be another kind of attribution issue that we can have. So we can have what's called a self-serving attributional bias, and this connects back to fundamental attribution error. If you remember, what we do is we have a tendency to look at people and either say that it is who they are as a person that causes a behavior, or it's the circumstance. Now, believe it or not, we do this again with attributional bias, where if we fail to do something, it is our circumstances. Success, though, if we have success at something, it's all us. So there wasn't any luck that went into it. It was us. If you got a picture there for you, the Boston Red Sox. And for a long time, the Boston Red Sox couldn't win a World Series. And part of the issue was what they called the curse of the Bambino. They traded Babe Ruth in the late 19-teens and hadn't won a World Series since. And so anytime something would start to go wrong as they started to make postseason runs and things like that, they would look at it as, oh, it's this curse. We're never going to get over this. But as soon as you see, as soon as you meet success, you don't attribute that to luck or whatever it is you did. You said, well, that's me, right? Any kind of success is coming directly from me. So the big deal that we see is what's called an actor-observer difference. And so the difference in kind of what we attribute things to can actually make a difference as to whether or not we're involved. If we are an actor in whatever is going on. So if you have a direct part in it, we're much more likely to say things are situational. But if we're observer, we're much more likely to say it's dispositional. So it's actually who that person or who that team or that organization is. You see Linus and Lucy here. Why are you always so anxious to criticize me? I just think I have a knack for seeing other people's faults. What about your own faults? Linus says. I have a knack for overlooking them. And I think when it comes to attribution, that Peanuts cartoon is very true.